Paulo Costa admits he was drunk during humiliating UFC 253 defeat. Guys, that is what we're talking about today. I've had some experience in this general topic, and it's not what you think, because obviously you guys know I don't drink. I've never had alcohol before, but this topic here really caught my eye. I know I don't normally cover current events, but I wanted to give my opinion on this because when you see that a UFC title challenger was drunk during his fight, it's going to raise some questions. You're going to start having less respect for that guy, but I want to show you why maybe this is not the most ridiculous thing you've heard all week. Anyway, let's roll the intro and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the subject. Alright guys, I know everybody is probably being super critical of Paulo Costa right now, going, man, he blew it, what was he doing? You know, he had his chance and he just threw it away. So I want to start off and read the quote from Costa, so I'm not spreading any misinformation and we know the whole story. He says, "I couldn't sleep because of the leg cramps. I remember that the fight was at 9 in the morning and we had to get up at 5 in the morning to prepare, stretch, bandage our hands. The UFC told us to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go to the arena where we fought. I did not fall asleep until 2:30. It was my fault. I don't blame anyone else. It was something I chose myself, but I had to sleep because I hadn't done it in the last 24 hours. I drank wine, lots of wine, a whole bottle of wine to fall asleep. I had one drink and it didn't work, 2 drinks, it didn't work, half the bottle and it didn't work, and in the end, I drank it all." Now, of course, he's not going to get much sympathy from me on the alcohol aspect because I'd be going, why do you have wine anyway? I mean, you're a professional athlete, you're about to compete for the biggest title, one of the biggest titles in the world. You shouldn't even have access to alcohol at this point. But I do want to point out that when I fought and have traveled internationally, it has been a struggle for me many times, and especially when I didn't know about time change, how it was going to affect me. I want to paint a picture for you. The first 3 times I went to Europe, I didn't pick up very quick, I guess. I just figured it was gonna pass away. But the first time I went, terrible sleep. We were up in the middle of the night, we were sleeping during the day, feeling groggy. Second time, same thing. The most recent one, which is really vivid in my mind, was at my first Bellator kickboxing fight. Now, my brother and I flew over from Victoria, Canada to Budapest, Hungary, and I was feeling sharp. The whole camp, I was feeling really spot on. Everything was just like, okay, I'm going to win this fight. There's no way I'm going to not get the decision. I ultimately did not. But the crazy thing was, in spite of how sharp I felt, when we got over there, we were having so much trouble falling asleep. It would be the afternoon, it would be 3 in the afternoon, and we were struggling to stay up. So we'd fall asleep, then we'd end up waking up probably around, 9 o'clock at night. We'd try to fall back asleep at some point and would end up being up to like 4 or 5 in the morning, then feel really groggy. Anyway, the whole situation, no matter how much we fought to get our sleep schedule back on, it just wouldn't work. And this is when I learned, and what I've done in the previous times going to Europe, that I need to go very early. Bellator only flies you out, let's say 5 days before. By the time you get there, with the time difference and jumping a day, you really only have 3.5 days until you actually compete. So in those 3.5 days, you are struggling so much to not get tired when you're going to be competing. And I remember in that fight in particular, I would be in the ring, I'd throw a punch, he'd throw a punch at me, and I'd go, uh-oh, okay, I have to block that. And I'd get hit, and then I'd be like, okay, block. And that kept happening, and I didn't know what was going on. And then after I clued in, like, holy smokes, I'm so tired and my brain is just on this delay. So I can sympathize with somebody who is struggling with sleep. I mean, when I've been back to Europe now, I go a little bit earlier, but still, the sleep is a struggle. And trying to compete at a very high level is so difficult. So what Costa was referring to when he said, I have to get up at 5 in the morning, is they're over in Abu Dhabi, and they're putting on the pay-per-view event the ideal time on the west coast of North America. So these guys have to get up at this ridiculous time. Now you could argue, look, he's a professional athlete. He should have gone out a month before. He should have been training during that time, the time where he would have been fighting, so he was used to it. But it's not always as simple as that. Maybe he came from Brazil where he lives. He goes, this is my training camp. I've done every training camp here. I want to go out a week before, and I want to do my whole camp back at home. I've done that so many times. It's where I'm best. It's where I'm most comfortable. It's where I'm happiest. I can go, yeah, I understand him wanting to be at home, doing this big trip over, trying to adjust, trying to deal with the jet lag, and in a last minute panic, trying to go, oh my gosh, I got to get up in, 5 hours and I just can't fall asleep. What am I going to do? And I guess a lot of people could argue, like, why didn't he take something else? Why didn't he get some sleeping pills? Why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Well, I mean, hindsight's 2020. You don't always know your sleep is going to be that terrible. So I do empathize with him, and I think we should not all be super critical of him, because it's much, much easier to criticize somebody than to stand in their shoes and actually go through that experience. You've got the fight nerves. You're fighting for your first UFC title. You did the big trek over across the world, and things are not just working out for you. It's very easy for us to sit here and go, he should have nailed it. He should have been on point. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. But let's be real. You don't always know how things are going to play out. And now that I've read this, because honestly, when I watched the fight, I was very disappointed. But now that I've read this, I actually sympathize with him a lot, because I've been through a similar experience where just my brain was not firing, my body was not working, and you finish and you're just like, oh my gosh, I was a shell of who I actually am at my best. Just a shell. Probably like, I don't even know, if I had to guess, 50% at best. Even right now, to shape, if you put me back in that ring against myself, even out of shape, I demolish that person that I was in the ring, because when your brain is not working, it doesn't matter how good your shape is. If your brain's not clicking and you're tired, you're going to get shut down by somebody who's fresh. Anyway, guys, I guess what you can take from this is don't be too critical of Paulo Costa. And if you ever have to travel for a fight, be very aware of time difference and how it can affect you. In my experience, traveling across the country, with a 3-hour time difference is nothing. It never affects me. But when you start going a whole day ahead or a whole day behind, you get there, you're tired, you have to adjust to the sleep, especially when you have a specific time that you have to fight and you have to be ready. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as you might think. And like I said, I've adapted my travel time to a whole week before, just so I am not going to end up in that position again where I cannot perform the way I know I can. So guys, let me know in the comments below, are you empathetic with Paulo Costa now that you know that side of the story, or are you still pretty critical? Do you guys think Paulo Costa should get a rematch after a couple of wins, or did that lackluster performance sort of put him way back and you're like, nah, he doesn't really deserve it? Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you haven't, get subscribed. Train hard, guys, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.